From cozy wife to cold lies, how my marriage of 25 years ended in a hotel lobby. I'm Daniel, 52, and for most of my marriage I thought I'd hit the jackpot. My wife Melissa, 50, was never flashy or high maintenance. She was the kind of woman who always had a pie cooling on the counter, who'd fall asleep next to me halfway through a movie, who smelled like fresh bread and lavender lotion. We had 2 daughters, Emily and Grace, both bright, funny girls. For years, our house was alive: homework at the kitchen table, weekend sleepovers, the sound of Melissa singing along to 80s songs while cooking dinner. I loved it. I loved her. She wasn't the gym-toned Instagram type. She was soft, warm, and felt like home. Then the girls left for college. The laughter faded, the house got too quiet. Melissa started getting restless. She'd bring up things like hiking trips, dance lessons, even joining some social walking group downtown. I'd just gotten a big promotion at work and was buried under deadlines, so I kept putting it off. Maybe next month, let's talk about it after this project. At first, she seemed a little disappointed, but still her usual self. Then, slowly, something started changing. She got a sleek, shoulder-length haircut, the first big style change in decades. She started wearing makeup even to run errands. And her clothes, not inappropriate, just more fitted, more stylish. I thought she was just reinventing herself now that the kids were gone. I told her she looked great, that I was proud she was doing things for herself. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I noticed the sparkle in her eyes wasn't for me anymore. Within a few months, Melissa's calendar filled up in a way I hadn't seen since the kids were little. She was at dance class 2 nights a week, hiking on Saturdays with her new club, and signing up for weekend dance competitions in nearby cities. The changes weren't just in her schedule. She started wearing perfume again, not the warm vanilla scent I knew, but sharper, bolder fragrances. She traded her comfy flats for heels, and I noticed her dresses were cut just a little lower, her tops just a little tighter. At first, I brushed it off. I thought maybe she was trying to boost her confidence, enjoy life more. But the little things started stacking up. She kept her phone on silent and face down whenever we were together. She laughed at texts she wouldn't show me. She'd shower the second she got home from her hikes. One Friday night, she came home from dance class, flushed, with her hair mussed like she'd been running through the wind. I leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head, muttering something about being gross and sweaty. That was the first time I felt it in my gut, that subtle, stomach-dropping sense that something was off. I didn't have proof yet, but I knew my sweet, plump, cozy wife had started living in a world I wasn't invited into. The first crack showed on a Saturday in early spring. Melissa had told me she was going on a day-long hike with her group, leaving around 8 a.m., and probably home by dinner. Around 4 p.m., I decided to call her to see if she wanted me to pick up dinner on my way back from running errands. She answered on the 3rd ring, voice a little too bright. Hey! Can't talk long, we're just, finishing up. In the background, I didn't hear wind, birds, or the crunch of hiking boots. I heard muffled bass, music, and voices. Laughter. The sound of glasses clinking. Where are you? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Oh, the group decided to grab a drink afterward, she said. It's just a little bar near the trail. A bar near the trail. Sure. When she got home 2 hours later, her hair was perfectly smoothed, makeup retouched, smelling not of sweat or earth, but of some expensive floral perfume. She gave me a quick peck on the cheek and headed straight upstairs, tossing a casual "Great hike" over her shoulder. I stood in the kitchen staring at the door she'd just gone through, my stomach turning. I didn't say anything, not yet, but the seed was planted. She could lie straight to my face, smile, and make it sound like nothing. And now I knew I needed to start paying attention. About a week later, I was folding laundry while Melissa was at dance class. She usually handled her own delicates, But that night her hamper was overflowing, so I just dumped it all onto the bed. Mixed in with the usual cotton underwear and sports bras was something different. A black lace bra with intricate embroidery, not the kind of thing you wear under hiking gear. And then, buried at the bottom, a matching thong with tags still attached from a boutique I'd never heard of. Melissa had never worn anything like this for me. Ever. Our intimacy had been fading for months, but even at our best, her style was more comfortable than provocative. I flipped the thong over in my hands, noting the price tag, $89. For a single piece of underwear. I couldn't imagine her spending that much just to wear it under jeans on a trail. That night, when she got home flushed and smiling from dance class, she headed straight for the hamper, plucking out the lingerie like she'd left something precious in there by mistake. She didn't see me watching from the hallway. She didn't notice the way my eyes followed her as she shoved it into the back of her dresser. I didn't ask. Not yet. But I took a photo of the set and the price tag. Something told me I'd need it later. The photo of that lingerie burned a hole in my phone gallery. I couldn't stop thinking about it. When she bought it, why she bought it, and most importantly, who she bought it for. A few days later, while Melissa was in the shower, I, accidentally, grabbed the wrong credit card from her purse. When I slid it out, a folded receipt fluttered onto the counter. It was from a boutique hotel downtown. 1 night stay, deluxe king room, 2 glasses of wine charged to the room, check out the next morning at 10:14 a.m. The date? The same weekend she'd been away for a dance competition in the city. That wasn't the only thing. Her online credit card statement, which she hadn't logged out of on the family laptop, showed a string of charges from upscale restaurants, spas, and that same lingerie boutique. Always on the same weekends as her supposed hikes, or dance trips. I stared at the screen, a mix of nausea and adrenaline hitting me hard. This wasn't just in my head anymore. There was a pattern. Melissa wasn't reinventing herself for self-care. She was reinventing herself for someone else. And now, I knew I was going to find out exactly who. 2 weeks later, she told me she was going to another dance competition, this time just for the day. She'd leave early Saturday morning and be back by dinner. I didn't tell her I'd already taken the day off work. Around 11 a.m., I parked a block away from the boutique hotel on her last receipt. I sat in my car, pretending to scroll my phone but watching every person who walked through the lobby doors. At 11:47, there she was. Melissa, in a fitted sundress I'd never seen before, her hair perfectly styled. She wasn't alone. A tall guy in a navy button-down had his hand at the small of her back like it belonged there. I froze, heart pounding, but forced myself to watch. They laughed at something he said as they crossed the lobby, her fingers brushing his arm. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out a key card, and handed it to him. He led the way to the elevator. They didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. As the doors closed behind them, I felt this cold clarity wash over me. It wasn't anger yet, just a brutal, almost surgical confirmation. All the hiking trips, the dance classes, the perfume, they weren't hobbies. They were rehearsals. And he was the audience. I sat there another 5 minutes, just breathing, before I started my car. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. I had what I came for. I waited until Sunday night, after she'd come back from her competition, all smiles, humming in the kitchen while reheating leftovers. I sat at the table and said, "Melissa, sit down. We need to talk." She looked at me with this mock concern. "Everything okay? You look serious." I slid my phone across the table. On the screen was a photo I'd snapped from the car, her and Mr. Navy button-down walking into the hotel, his hand on her back. Her face froze for just a second before she went full performance mode. "Daniel, wow. I don't even know what to say. Are you spying on me now? Who is he?" I asked, my voice steady. She gave a short, sarcastic laugh. "He's my dance partner. We got a room to change and freshen up before the performance." You know hotels rent for the day, right? God, you're paranoid. I leaned forward. 2 glasses of wine charged to the room. Overnight stay. 10:14 a.m. Checkout. That's not changing for a performance, Melissa. Her eyes narrowed. Maybe if you weren't so busy working all the time, I wouldn't need to find someone who actually wants to spend time with me. There it was, the pivot. She wasn't going to apologize. She was going to make it my fault. I didn't take the bait. I just stood up and said, "We're done, Melissa? You don't get to use my schedule as an excuse for lying to my face." She called after me, something about how I was throwing away our marriage over nothing. But I knew better. I'd seen enough. I wasn't going to let Melissa twist this into some story where I was the cold, inattentive husband who drove her into someone else's arms. Not with our girls. That Monday evening, I called Emily and Grace on a video chat. They were in their dorms, laughing and catching up, asking how things were at home. I took a breath and told them straight. "Your mom's been seeing someone else. I found proof, hotel receipts, pictures, everything." I confronted her, and she admitted enough for me to know it's over. The smiles vanished. Emily's face went red. Grace started tearing up immediately. Emily asked, "She really did that? To you?" I nodded. "I didn't want you to hear some twisted version from her first. I want you to know the truth." Grace sniffled. "We'll come home this weekend." "You don't have to," I said. "Finish your classes. We'll talk more when you can, but I don't want this to derail you." By the end of the call, they both promised they'd stand by me. Emily even said, "Don't let her make you think you weren't enough. She's the one who wasn't enough." That hit hard. I'd been telling myself I was fine, that I didn't care, but hearing my own daughter say it made me realize how much I'd been doubting myself. Melissa might have thought she could play the victim, but now our girls knew the truth. That was one narrative she couldn't rewrite. I didn't have to blast it on Facebook or send out some mass email. The truth has a way of traveling on its own when the story's this ugly. I told my parents first. My mom went quiet, that deep, simmering kind of quiet where you know she's already rewriting her opinion of someone. My dad muttered, "I always thought she liked the attention a little too much." Which, coming from him, was basically a death sentence. Then my sister found out. Within a week, her friends knew, my cousins knew, and a few of Melissa's dance group people were suddenly avoiding her. One even sent me a message. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I thought you should know he's her instructor." This has been going on for months. Melissa started noticing the shift. Invitations dried up. Group chats went silent. She'd walk into the local cafe and get polite nods instead of warm greetings. She confronted me about it one night. "Are you telling people lies about me?" I didn't even look up from my laptop. "No lies, Melissa. Just the truth. And if the truth makes you look bad, that's on you." She huffed, muttered something about small-town gossip, and stomped off. But I could tell, it was getting to her. The sparkle in her eyes had dulled, replaced with something I recognized from years ago, frustration and not being in control of the story. And I wasn't even done yet. Once the emotional dust started settling, I went straight for the practical kill shot, the money. I met with a divorce lawyer my buddy recommended, a guy named Harris who looked like he'd been ending marriages since the Nixon era. I laid it all out, the hotel receipts, the lingerie, the PI photos. Harris didn't even blink. "Open a new account in your name only," he said. "Move all direct deposits there. Freeze the joint credit card. And don't tell her until she finds out the hard way." So I did exactly that. I also started combing through our statements, marking every expense that was clearly tied to her affair: hotel bills, fancy dinners, spa treatments. Harris told me we could argue those were dissipation of marital assets, meaning she'd have to pay that money back in the settlement. Melissa found out about the changes on a Saturday morning at the mall. She called me from the checkout line, voice sharp enough to cut glass. My card's getting declined. What the hell did you do? I protected what's mine, I said. You can use your own income from now on. You're pathetic, she hissed. No wonder. I hung up before she could finish. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about cutting off the oxygen to her little fantasy life. Without my money, those hotel rooms and boutique dresses weren't nearly as accessible. And I'll be honest, it felt good. The Monday after the card decline incident, I was in Harris's office signing my name on a stack of divorce papers thick enough to stop a bullet. We'll file on grounds of adultery, he said, tapping the folder with a pen. With the prenup in place, she won't get much. And with the documentation you have, we'll make sure she doesn't get a dime more than necessary. I nodded. Make it public. I want her to get served at home. 2 days later, a process server handed her the envelope right on our front porch. I was sitting in the living room, coffee in hand, when I heard her voice spike from 0 to livid. You're divorcing me? Just like that? No discussion? I looked at her over the rim of my mug. We discussed it the day I caught you walking into a hotel with him. You just didn't listen. She went into a tirade about throwing away decades together and overreacting to nothing. I didn't respond. Harris had told me the golden rule: stop arguing with someone who's already shown you they'll lie without blinking. The papers were filed that week. And with each legal step, I could feel the weight sliding off me, not instantly, but piece by piece, like I was taking off a jacket I'd been wearing for far too long. Melissa, though? She just realized her free ride was ending, and she hated it. The day after the papers were served, I walked through the house with a single goal: remove every trace of Melissa and the life she built behind my back. I started in the bedroom. All the clothes she bought during her dance phase went straight into garbage bags: the tight dresses, the heels she never wore for me, the perfume that smelled like someone else's cologne was already on her skin. Next came the little things. The framed photo of us from our 20th anniversary? Boxed up. The matching coffee mugs we'd gotten on a beach trip? In the donation pile. Even the quirky wall art she'd picked out during her weekends away got taken down. I saved the most satisfying for last, the lingerie. All of it went into a separate bag. I drove it to a thrift shop in a neighboring town and handed it over without a word. I didn't want to sell it for profit. I wanted it gone, tainted, erased. When Melissa came by to pick up a few things, she stopped dead in the doorway of the bedroom. Where's my stuff? Out of my house, I said. You can't just throw away my things, she snapped. They weren't yours, I said evenly. They were props in a lie I'm no longer a part of. She left without another word, slamming the door so hard a picture in the hallway tilted sideways. For the first time in months, I slept without waking up angry in the middle of the night. The air felt lighter. Once the house was cleared, it didn't feel empty, it felt mine. I rearranged the furniture, moved my desk to where her sewing table used to be, and painted the bedroom a deep, calm blue instead of the cheerful yellow she'd insisted on years ago. Every change felt like peeling off another layer of her control. I started cooking again, not the rushed weeknight meals we used to have, but slow, deliberate recipes. I'd put on music, open a beer, and actually enjoy being in my own kitchen without wondering when she'd walk in with another excuse about being too busy to eat together. Weekends were no longer just recovery time from work. I joined a cycling group, caught a couple of live music shows with friends, and even reconnected with my younger brother, Adam, who Melissa never liked because he asked too many questions. And the girls. Emily and Grace made a point to call more often. Emily sent me photos from campus. Grace started asking me for cooking tips. The best part? I knew they weren't doing it out of pity. They were doing it because they finally felt like they could without Melissa's shadow over every conversation. Every mile I biked, every meal I cooked, every laugh with my daughters was a reminder. Her betrayal had been the end of something, but it wasn't the end of me. By the time summer rolled around, Melissa was more of a bad memory than a presence in my life. I booked my first solo trip in decades, a week in Montana, just me, a cabin, and the mountains. No schedule, no couple compromises, no checking my phone every hour. I hiked at my own pace, fished in total silence, and came back smelling like campfire and pine instead of hotel air freshener. I also signed up for a photography class at the local community center. I'd always liked taking pictures on family trips, but Melissa used to mock my dad angles and tell me to stick to work. Now, no one was there to roll their eyes. By the second week, I was staying after class to talk shop with a few other students, even making plans to go shoot landscapes together. Work felt different, too. Without the constant low-level stress of wondering where Melissa was or what excuse she'd have, I could focus again. I got another small promotion, not as big as the last one, but this time I celebrated it with friends instead of with a half-hearted "congrats" from someone already texting someone else. For the first time since the girls were little, I felt like my life was expanding instead of shrinking. And the best part? I wasn't building it around anyone else's needs but my own. If you told me a few years ago that the woman who baked pies on Sundays and hummed in the kitchen would end up lying her way into hotel rooms with another man, I'd have laughed in your face. But here I am. Here's what I've learned, and what I wish someone had told me sooner. 1. Big changes in a partner's habits aren't always innocent. New hobbies, new clothes, new friends, they can be healthy, but they can also be camouflage. 2. Cheaters don't just betray your trust, they rewrite history to make you doubt yourself. Melissa was an expert at turning my suspicions into proof that I was the problem. 3. Get proof before you act. If I'd confronted her the first time I felt something was wrong, she would have buried me in excuses. Evidence made it undeniable. 4. Revenge isn't screaming in someone's face. It's taking back your control, your money, your reputation, and leaving them to live without the comfort you once gave. 5. You are more than what they made you feel like. Her betrayal made me question if I was enough. My daughters, my friends, and my own damn reflection proved otherwise. Melissa's gone, but I'm still here, biking, cooking, laughing, and building something new. She's just a chapter in the middle of my story, not the ending. And if you're reading this thinking you might be where I was a year ago, don't wait for the house to burn down. Smell the smoke, and get out. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.